Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's On at Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking all about all of the Hallowstream content that's going to be coming up in the weeks ahead. We'll also be talking about the shift over to the 45-day theatrical window, and plus we're going to be talking about some of this week's biggest Disney Plus and Star originals. But before we get into any of that, just a quick bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do subscribe on either YouTube or on the audio platforms where you'll find us, like Spotify, iTunes, etc. You can also support us from as little as $2 a month on Patreon or YouTube channel members, which help keep all the lights on, keep all the costs of running everything going. So big thank you to our supporters, including Raphael, Robert, J Blue, My VCR Still Works, Bina, Joshua, Adam, Dawn, Martin, Jeremy, and Sarah. While over on Patreon's, big thank you to Aero G, Dana, Streamer. We've also got Connor. We've got Khalid, James, Red Mars Man, Cody, and we've got Andrew. And also just a huge thank you to Sarah for being an executive producer. So again, thank you very much for all of your support. And let's jump into it. So this week, two major big announcements. First off, I think we'll do this one first. Was the move over to the sort of Disney kind of officially confirmed that they are kind of, it's not essentially, but essentially dropping Disney Plus Premier Access, at least for this winter, because they've now gone for a 45-day theatrical window for all of their releases for the rest of 2021, except for Enchanto, which is actually going to only have a 30-day exclusive at cinema. So that's going to be coming to cinemas on Wednesday, the 24th of, the 24th is Thanksgiving, the Wednesday for Thanksgiving. And then 30 days later, it'll be arriving on Friday, Christmas Eve, right in time for the holidays, which I think that's a smart move. I mean, getting that movie onto Disney Plus on Christmas Eve, that is a big drop, and that'll be a massive. I know I'll be putting that one on when we wherever I am on Christmas Day. It'll be like, yep, we're doing that one. Yes, that's a big move. We know now Eternals is 45 days, which also happens to line up to the week of Christmas for the 45 days running out. So it's going to be a nice big boost, I think, for Disney Plus getting those two movies. And plus, they'll also be doing the same thing with all of the 20th century titles, including Ron's Gone Wrong. You've also got The Last Duel. And then I'm trying to think, there's the Kingsman. And the good thing of that is internationally, they can come to Disney Plus. So that even boosts that up even more so. So they'll be dropping around the holiday season as well. Obviously, in the US, it's a little bit more difficult because of the HBO deal and Hulu and all the rest of it. But for the rest of us around the world, it's really going to make a big difference, I think, with this 45-day window. Some people are kind of saying, well, it's nearly all because it's 20th century titles, it doesn't really matter. Well, internationally, obviously, it's a big deal. But for me, after the success of Shang-Chi, it wasn't really a huge surprise with Eternals. But then I also look at it as well of they're kind of following what Warner Brothers, Paramount have already done with setting a 45-day window. And I think Universal have done, it's 17 days for their titles. So, they're all kind of following suits. And yeah, so what did you think of all this news yesterday?
Yeah, it was quite a bit of news. So I'm happy with it. Obviously, I haven't been getting the Premier Access titles anyway, so it doesn't really impact me very much. But just knowing what the plan is important, I think. And that's the important thing. They are letting consumers know what to expect. It's been interesting, though, because I've seen a lot of pushback lately against the Disney Plus Premier Access idea. I've seen comments like, oh, the experiment and their attempt to push this on us has failed. And like, they didn't attempt to push us on. They had to do this, otherwise these movies would never have come out. And now that's no longer the case, now that people can go back to theaters to a certain degree, they don't have to. But it also lets them still have that where you can go, yeah, if you're not comfortable going back to theaters, or if your country doesn't let you go back to theaters, you at least know when it's coming your way now.
The Premier Access is such a weird dynamic. I put up quite a lengthy article today because I kind of been doing that on Saturdays, putting up a bit of a long form column. And this one was all about Premier Access. And it was this kind of feeling of there's so many different categories of people with Premier Access. You've got the families which love it. They've been loving Premier Access. They love it doing it, and they want to do it. Then you've got some other people, that they don't want to go to theaters. They don't feel safe. And they want Premier Access to continue. Then you've got other people that find it too expensive. I don't want to do it. I can go to the cinema for cheaper. You've then got other groups of people that are in the Scarlett Johansson camp that are just anything to do with Premier Access is just evil, wrong, and gone, which is not really, I think, the best way of looking at it. And then you got a whole other people that are so into like cinemas that anything that takes away from cinema experience is just the devil. And it's been a really weird mix, and the fighting going on between it all is quite incredible. For me, I always felt like I liked the idea of like with Jungle Cruise and with the last few ones where you had the choice. If you wanted to go to cinema, you could do. If you like the experience, you go to cinema. If you don't want to do it, you could stay home. And in that way, and it was just kind of this weird thing of you had the option. You could do what you wanted, and that was always the key thing. You could do. You had that choice. Whereas with Mulan, you didn't. Mulan was a bit more tricky because you only had the one. So it was, whatever you wanted to do was up to you. Now that's kind of gone. You've kind of got the option. But I think back, if before this whole mess of a thing happened around the world, remember we had to wait nearly 6 to 8 months between a movie coming out in cinemas before it arrived on Disney Plus? Because I think everyone has forgotten that. It was just like, I'm like, you do remember Toy Story 4 took like 8 months to get here, and Aladdin took 7 months to get here, and Rise of the Skywalker was 6 months, and then they said that was there early. And there was like, I think Frozen 2 took 6 to 7 months here in the UK.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot quicker in the US. But I think everyone kind of, maybe they look, there's been, ever since Onward, everything just went wrong. And it is just a very strange situation. If I think of, for me, I think 45 days. That's not a lot. That's 6 weeks. It's all like, to me, the thing is, if you've forgotten it by the second week, you might as well just wait at that point because you've kind of gone past it. It's like Free Guy now with me. I'm like, I might as well just wait another 2 weeks. It's not worth the doing it. But yeah, it's for me. I feel like this is a good compromise because not every movie I would go, and I would probably rent them. But there's some movies I would want to go see. I had a pretty good experience going to see Shang-Chi at the cinema last week. Nothing where I was like, oh my god, this is the worst thing I've done. So I want to just stay on Premier Access. But had it been Premier Access, I probably would have done it just being lazy, and it would just been easier. And I would have actually enjoyed it because I could have ended up watching it again. But I wanted some continuity. I just wanted. So now it's nice to know that for the rest of this year, we know what's going on. We know what the plan is. Because what I didn't like, this whole, we're going to treat everything different. It's like, well, is every movie at that last minute, is it going to go to Disney Plus? Is it going to go Premier Access? Is it going to go theaters? Is it going to get delayed? We've had that for 18 months. It's just nice to have a little bit of continuity.
Yeah, and I personally liked the choice that you had with Jungle Cruise and such, where if it made financial sense or health sense to get the Premier Access on day one, you could do that, and or you could go to the theater if you wanted to. But I understand why Disney doesn't want to push forward with that one. It increased piracy because it made the movie easily accessible, and you don't get the double revenue stream of people going back and seeing it again. Once you pay the $30, it's yours, and you can watch it 50 times, and it's still $30. Whereas if you have to go to the theater, it's going to be the price of the ticket every single time. Yeah. Which, as a consumer, I'm like, man, I'd much rather just watch it 20 times for one price. But Disney and the movie theaters, they want you to go multiple times. Yeah.
And the whole thing as well, I think about the piracy issue, because obviously, if it's on Disney Plus for everyone, then piracy. But because it's available to so many people for so cheap, including in your bundle, piracy drops off a bit because, you get some people that maybe don't want to subscribe and they pirate. But those numbers are so much smaller because, they're getting in the package and people go, well, it's only like $6 a month. I don't worry about it. Whereas the Premier Access at $30, it's like, no, I'm not doing that. So I do think the piracy issue, I think primarily with cinemas, with the movies, is if they get released in cinemas, there's a prestige to it. There is a prestige to them being in cinemas. And they make a lot of money primarily in that first week, especially with Marvel titles. They make nearly all the money in that first weekend. Even if you look at the actual facts on the data, the majority of movies make like literally 90% in those first few weeks anyway. So where they used to have the 90-day window, they didn't really make a huge amount at those last few months. It was primarily, you would see like that 60% drop, 50% drop off week on week. Of course, by the time you go through, 12 weeks or whatever it was, that's a lot. That's a lot to go through. So now they've just speeded it all up. And then there's a kind of a stigma about going straight to streaming. People kind of look at it like straight to video, like it's like Aladdin free, or something like that. You go onto the video. I used to go to the video shop and it is. I mean, I do it myself. I'd go on to like, Amazon Prime or the PlayStation Store when they used to have movies, and you'd go through, and my wife would be like, "What about that movie? Never heard of it. What about that movie? Never." Because we are not even giving it a chance. Well, if I've never heard of it and it's never been in the theater, then it's going to be rubbish. And I used to do it myself. Bruce Willis is in some random movie you've never heard of before. It's like, well, if I've not heard of it, and I feel like if I've not heard about it, and if and I keep up with trailers and all the rest of it, then it is going to be,
So first of all, Aladdin 3 was really good. It was Aladdin 2 that was awful. But yeah, that has always been like a kiss of death for me. It's like, oh, it's a new movie with this actor that I really, really like. Wait, did this come to theaters? How is this the first time I'm ever hearing it? No, This has got to be terrible. And I will definitely do that with streaming titles. I've done it with Netflix titles, Amazon Prime. I think there's one. There's a Netflix title that dropped this week, and it's starring I'm totally blanking on it. Kate Winslet, not Winslet, Winstead, whatever her name is. Dang it,
Kate Beckinsale,
not Beckinsale.
No.
In any event, it's her and the guy playing Carnage in Venom, who's
Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, well, I'm having a terrible time with that. And I'm just like, man, I like both those actors, but it went straight to Netflix. Do I trust this movie? But then on the other hand, it's like, well, it's on Netflix. It doesn't cost me anything to watch it, so maybe I will anyway.
Yeah, I feel like when it goes straight to Netflix, you kind of get into that habit now. I don't think it's as bad as it was, because that they are paying for it, and a lot of the chains are trying to sell stuff on. But I think you only have to look really at when you look at the lineup for like 2022, and we'll talk here internationally because it's a lot easier with all the 20th century titles in there. There's about 20 plus movies with all the searchlight. So, for example, here in the UK, if we're getting 20 plus movies 45 days after they've been released in cinemas, that is a lot. I mean, that's pretty much nearly one every 2 weeks dropping in on average. And that's quite a lot. And I think that's a real good way of boosting up. So if you're getting these movies dropping, and they can make a big deal of it every Friday, it'll be like, oh, this movie's dropping. And it's that thing, oh yeah, that was only in the cinemas. Oh, it's a really new movie because it's only just come out in cinemas. And I think that is like a drive. I mean, we're seeing it. Warner Brothers have already said that's what they're doing next year. Their movies are going to have 45 days. Disney haven't gone full into 2022, but I'm looking at this now going, well, that's a big lineup. And even just this year, just internationally, I'm looking at Kingsman. Okay, yeah, I wanted to see that one. Would I have gone cinema to it on Christmas week? I don't know. But something like The Last Duel or something like that, now I'm a bit like, I could wait. I don't know. I might go now. Now that I know that they're coming a bit, I might be like inclined to go see them a bit quicker. But at the same time, 45 days isn't a long time. And I do think that's really going to help overall. And I think going forward, Run's Gone Wrong is a prime example of a movie that I'll be like, what, I'll wait. I'll wait till the beginning of December for it to arrive on Disney Plus in the UK, because that's probably when it will, And it's boosting up the Disney Plus, and it's helping cinemas. And also Disney are getting their money back because they get most of it back on the things. I know that the variant and all the rest of it, the numbers are going to go up, but I think everyone's got to that point where they're like, oh, look, we can't keep doing what we're doing. It's not going to work. We can't keep closing everything down constantly. And it is a choice. And I don't think 6 weeks is too bad. I think, and it kind of fixes multiple problems. And if all the studios are all doing the same thing, it's a lot easier to keep track of.
Yeah. And 6 weeks, I think, is just long enough where if I want to see the movie now, 6 weeks is far enough out where I'm like, it's not worth waiting for. And if like Ron Gone Wrong, I'm like, I don't need to see that in theater. Yeah. 6 weeks means, it's not that far away at all. So it works in whichever direction you want it to go in.
Yeah. And it is that kind of thing. You get that choice. And then you're going to get, we are going to get Disney Plus original movies in there as well. And, you're going to get 20th Century and Hulu are also making movies as well for Star and Hulu. Things like Vacation Friends, they've got a load of movies. So I'm there going, hold on a minute. This is, this whole thing in Netflix having one movie a week. Disney ain't getting that far off. I mean, they're gonna. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they're gonna be up to it. And then you throw in National Geographic movies as well. I think you ain't gonna be far off 30 plus movies a year in 2022. I mean, I think that's quite an impressive lineup. Obviously, in the US, it gets split between Hulu and stuff, but yeah, I think this. I personally am at the point now. I sort of saw that yesterday. And I went, okay, I mean, I would have liked Premier Access to continued on indefinitely. I think that would have just been like, but I would like them to go, right, we're doing it for everything. And so we know, at least I was a bit like, oh, right, okay, so we know now for the next 4 months what's going on.
Yeah. And I kind of understood that Premier Access wasn't going to stick around forever, or not in the form that we got it in. It is too bad. It was very convenient. I only took advantage. I never took advantage of it, actually. But I would have for like Shang-Chi, considered it for Black Widow. There are movies upcoming. Like if Eternals had it, I'd almost certainly be doing it for Eternals.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pandemic is still a thing, but yeah, so everyone's kind of like, let's go back to the theaters. It's
I mean,
in the States.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there are different things going on in different countries. I mean, here, generally, we're not having that whole not vaccine, that argument's not really being said. There's obviously some people saying about it, but generally, there's no kind of political thing with it. It's not really a hot potato over here in the slightest, and the numbers represent that. We've got quite high numbers. And so therefore that hasn't really been an issue. How they're treating people in the hospitals and stuff. Just generally as a whole, things have we've still got lots of high numbers because of the way that we're dealing with it now. But you do get to that point of going, every country's in a different situation and every country's having to deal with it. And and it's that thing of it. It's not necessarily. It's not about being political, and it's not about being. Everyone has got their own individual choice of how they deal with it. And if you don't want to go to the cinema, that is 100% your choice. And if you do want to go, that's your choice as well. And you just got to follow whatever the rules are wherever you live. That's the thing. And I think it is that kind of weird thing of. I think back. I mean, when you think back over this last 18 months, with seeing movies and stuff, it's really weird that we have all had very similar experiences with little quirks and different changes and stuff here. But it has been very, most people don't have one problem come into the whole world and everyone has to deal with it. And, ultimately all the studios had to deal with it, all the cinemas had to deal with it. We've all had to deal with it as viewers. And, it's just nice. It's, you can see it already now where, the movies are starting to roll out properly. Week to week to week, we're getting, because we went so long without any movies, and it's just nice now. Now they've got the confidence to go, right, okay, we're going full in.
Yeah, I'm actually getting in the habit every week of logging into my local cinema's website just to see what stuff is airing, either on Discount Tuesday or kind of what new releases are popping in. I'm being far more picky in what I want to see than I used to be. Like before the pandemic, I'd be like, oh, I'm marginally interested in that movie. I'll check it out on Discount Tuesday. Now I'm like, it's not worth going to the theater for that, even though it's only $6 or $7. But I am keeping an eye on it. And that was something I didn't do for an entire year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I think like for me, like with Shang-Chi last week, I think that was the one that could break it for me, because I feel like like with James Bond coming up, and then we've also got Venom, and then One's Gone Wrong, and then Last Duel, and then Eternals, and then suddenly I'm going, oh, well, that's like we're going into this multiple movies. How many will I see? I don't know, but at least now we know how it's going to work. I can and I think that's always a good thing, and I think. Ultimately now people can make that choice of what they want to do. But I still think the 45-day, if they do this with Disney Plus, and I think that's what looks to be they're doing. I mean, Enchanto dropping on Christmas Eve is an amazing thing. It shows you where the industry is all shifting to. They want their streaming services, but they also need to keep theatrical going as well. They want their cake and they want to eat it. And the thing is, I got to say this: if every movie goes straight to streaming, we're not going to see $200-400 million movies. The budgets are just going to disappear because they're not going to be warrant to that. We're going to see lots more smaller titles, and whether or not we do in the future, I don't know. But I think those big epic movies wouldn't exist if everything went straight to streaming.
Especially the lesser known titles. Like the Marvel movies will continue to maintain budgets. Star Wars, once it comes back into movie land, will maintain those budgets. But you won't find another John Carter of Mars or Tomorrowland. They're just not going to get the budgets.
No. I think that's because that's definitely a way of there's a lot of things going on with it and it is a very tricky situation. And as a balancing act, I mean, they did say originally that Mulan was the only movie going to get premiere access. I mean, we all said at the time, well, they're not developing this whole system for nothing, but they've ran 5 movies. They've tested the market. We knew premiere access worked well for Black Widow in terms of pulling in 60 million. I think Jungle Cruise was 30 million, but we don't know what the other ones did. Maybe it's gone up and down, but it's a very tricky situation. They know, but also it kind of holds them up. You think like Jungle Cruise and Black Widow's got like a couple more weeks left before it's available to everybody. How much more impactful would that have been had that already been on Disney Plus? Back in March or not March? Sorry, in August. Jungle Cruise would have probably just debuted. It would be about this week, wouldn't it? It was only like the end of July. Yeah, so it probably would only been like this week that Jungle Cruise would be dropping for everybody instead of November the 12th, Disney Plus Day. It is just I think it's going to be a good move. I think if they're going to do it, and then let's see how Enchanto that they might do that a bit more regularly next year. But I think 30 days might be pushing it.
Well, I think that might be a special occasion, but what I'll be interested in seeing, especially in 2022 and onwards, is if Christmas becomes a release for a big title. Because so far every year we've had a big release on Disney Plus on Christmas Eve, right around Christmas, and it's been a pretty major title. It's been the big family movies. Yeah. But part of that was also like, this is our pandemic present to you. Yeah. We know you can't go to the theater, so here is what was it last year? It was the Pixar movie, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we got Soul on Christmas Day.
Soul, that's right.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if in 2022 we get another Christmas present, as it were, from Disney, where it'll be a movie that would do really well in theaters in normal situations, but they give it to us anyway as like here, Happy Christmas.
I still think if we're getting Eternals and Enchanto that week, that's still 2 big movies, and they're still going to be, I think, in most people's eyes, well, they've only just come out. That'll be, especially Enchanto, it'll be like, that's just come out. That's literally 4 weeks ago. So I do, and I mean, it makes total sense. You've got pretty much most of the world at home doing, it's, and how many of us put movies? I mean, put movies on while we're with our families and stuff, and you might not be watching it fully, but it just makes total sense. And then Disney they own the ratings war, completely, and I think they will dominate very much with that movie dropping, and if they got Eternals dropping as well that same weekend, I think they're going to be that's going to be some big heavy hits.
Oh yeah, it's a good weekend to watch a movie with family if you get to spend Christmas with family, or that time period anyway.
Right, so let's now shift over to Hallowstream. So this is Disney's Halloween, which I'm going to be honest, a lot of people are interested. There's a lot of people interested in Hallowstream. So this is kicking off on the 24th of September. So this is when they're going to be kicking things off with promoting it. But it really kicks in when we get into October. So on October the 1st, we're getting the brand new Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales special. So that's going to be like 3 different shorts. We've already seen the trailer for that one. Again, looks pretty cool. The following week on the 8th of October, we're getting Muppets Haunted Mansion. So that's going to be a special with the Muppets. And there's going to be some cameos from some celebrities. And it just looks a lot of fun. I mean, I love the Haunted Mansion. You got the Muppets, so there's a lot of expectations on that one there. Then just the following Wednesday, on the 13th of October, we're getting the entire Just Beyond series. So there's 8 episodes. Each one is its own separate story with its own separate actors and stuff like that. So they're dropping the whole season at once. So they're doing the binge drop on that one, which is interesting. That's a big shift. So there's going to be more announcements later. But those are the main ones. So there's also Under Wraps as well, which is a brand new Disney Channel original movie, which is coming to the Disney Channel on the 1st of October, and then it will be dropping onto Disney Plus on the 8th of October. So there's that. I mean, I think that's great. Again, Disney Channel show, a Disney Channel movie arriving on Disney Plus a week later, not 6 months later, but a week later. It's all this speeding up, getting things onto Disney Plus. It would have been nice on the 1st, and then they've also just promoting all the favorites that are already on there, TV and movies and stuff. I mean, yeah, they're all going to get very, very popular. I think Hallowstream is going to be and I think there'll be a lot more. I think there'll be some more bits and pieces, but this is only the start of it. But I know there was a lot of interest in this Halloween stuff. I mean, I actually even picked up some Halloween decorations myself to do some stuff up. But what caught your eye from that lot?
Interestingly enough, what I find fascinating is not only do they have these shows, new shows and traditional movies, but they also went out of their way to create a list of individual television shows. You're like, oh, you want to watch something Halloween? Well, here's go watch Hannah Montana season 1 episode 17, or That's So Raven season 2 episode 2. It's kind of
you'll also find the collection will be on the front page, so you'll be able to find them a lot easier. And obviously, you got all the Treehouse of Horrors with The Simpsons, and I think it's good. I mean, we're also going to probably see things like Hocus Pocus and Nightmare Before Christmas, will just shoot back up the trending as everyone starts watching all these all these Halloween movies. Load on here. There's still loads on here that we've not seen. And me and Jeremy are watching. Me and Jeremy we are doing for the retro review for October. We're doing a Halloween movie every week. So we the Patreon and the YouTube channel members have already picked us to do the Haunted Mansion, and that was the one they picked up the most that we're going to be doing. And we'll also be doing Maleficent, and we're going to be doing a few more of these movies as well over the course of October. So we're getting into the Halloween spirits. Look, as I said, I've got some decoration. We're going all in this year. I've never done Halloween since I was like 8.
Honestly, I haven't done Halloween since I was like a teenager or anything like that. But I do appreciate that they called out Gargoyles on this list as well. Yeah. I love that show.
It's one of those ones I never watched. I think I don't know if it was bad timing and when they used to put it on TV, but that was one that I never watched. And it's amazing me all these like Disney Channel original movies. I mean, they definitely seem to have really kind of leaned in on that over the years. But
they've leaned in on it, but so many of them are just not memorable at all. Most of these, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that one, and then I haven't heard of like the entire bottom half of the list. I think we talked about it last year. Halloween is one of those holidays where they really don't have like classic Halloween movies. You can go with generically scary movies, you can go horror movies, but there's very few Halloween movies other than Hocus Pocus and The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Me and Jeremy, we were going through trying to find some of like the ones that we could do for Star, do some like proper, and I think one of them was Omen or something like that. So we're like, well, that might be a bit of too much of a stretch.
do the Exorcist and The Ring, and
we were just going, well, we might throw a couple of Star ones in there just to kind of liven up a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there that we're going to be watching as well. It'd be nice. I think it still feels early, but I went into the store the other day and all the Halloween decorations are all going up in the supermarkets and all the bits and pieces and stuff. So it's like, okay. I mean, they don't fully normally transition here to like October. It's just obviously they're getting them and then all the Christmas merchandise, and I'm still walking around in my t-shirt and shorts and going, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready for Halloween.
The second back to school is done here, which is normally about a week or two ago from when we recorded this. Halloween is everywhere. I went to my local Target, and then the Halloween section is by itself, I think, bigger than almost any other section of the store except for the grocery aisles.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a big thing, so that will be good. Now, also, what they did mention on the Hallowstream was they did put episode 5 of What If Zombies is on this list as one of the Halloween ones. So we're going to get into some of the reviews. I mean, this is a cool thing now with the Wednesdays, they've been out for days, so we'll be in spoiler mode. But what did you think of this Zombies episode?
I was bored.
Really?
I was bored.
Really?
I got to about the halfway mark when Vision shows up, when non-zombie Vision shows up, and I was just like, I had mentally checked out by that point. I was actually fiddling on my phone. This is the first, not just What If episode, but I think this is the first Marvel episode on Disney Plus where I was just like, I'm going to play with my phone for a little bit. It wasn't bad. Like, I'm not like, this is a terrible What If. I'm never watching this again. It just didn't capture me.
It's really funny because you're not the only one that said that. Because on the Facebook group, there's a real like divide. It's either love it or hate it. There doesn't seem to be anything in between on this one. You have a lot of people going, no, this is stupid. Like, this isn't Marvel. Like, what is? I gotta be honest, I loved it. For me, this was the most fun episode out of all of them. I loved it from start to finish. I mean, obviously, I'll be honest, I have gone on a Walking Dead rampage with 10 seasons. I know. So I fully connected with the whole monsters thing this year with zombies. And it felt like it felt like a crossover because it was pretty much the same rules applied. You know, don't get bit and you turn into it kind of thing. And just I mean, they were brutal. I mean, they literally just cut, heads off. They were cutting them in half.
Captain America got sliced in half by the shield. Yeah.
Vision just got like blasted. Happy got eaten. It was just, I loved it. I was God, this is really brutal. They are really kind of going for it. And I gotta give them kudos. That was just like, well done. I enjoyed that one. This is where that thing of going, they went in a completely different direction because they could. They were allowed to go off. We never see that in the league. We never see that on the series. We'd never see that in the movie. And I loved it. I loved all, the bit at the end with Thanos becoming a zombie, with the Infinity Gauntlet. And I mean, I'm just a bit like, well, then it's like normally they're all operating something. And well, actually, normally the zombies have kind of bite. That's all they can kind of do. So you had to kind of have a little bit of mix with it. But I just really enjoyed. It was so fun. Such a fun episode.
And it just didn't click with me. I liked the random assembly of characters. It was nice to see so many other characters who normally don't interact with each other, because you got, like, as you said, Happy, and then you've got Sharon Carter, and then Spider-Man and Ant-Man. And
it was really nice seeing Wasp and Spider-Man having a thing, because it's like, you've never really seen them interact at all in the movies or anything like that. And it was like, and she kind of having a soft spot for him, and then just having Paul Rudd in a glass dome. I mean,
totally Futurama him. Honestly, that might have been a little bit much for me, but they did get some good mileage out of it, especially with him just like teaming up with Doctor Strange's cloak for just like, we're just gonna hover you around here. I do want to talk about the Thanos thing though. So I didn't have any particular issue with Thanos being a zombie. That was, I'm like, whatever, sure. Thanos is a zombie and he's got the Infinity Gauntlet, and all right, I'm fine with that. It's not exactly the most ridiculous thing in this episode, so no big deal. Yeah. However, it did make me realize there is a bit of a trend with the what ifs, where they're kind of trying to do like this Twilight Zone last minute switcheroo. Twilight Zone, traditionally, you had the story for 25 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes, there's a big twist to make you go, oh my goodness, what this is so terrible. They did it with this episode, where you're like, there's a ray of hope. They're going to go to Wakanda, and they're going to solve the issue. And no, Thanos is going to get the stone and snap the universe. And you're like, oh, well, okay. But they also did that in episode 2, where which was the Star-Lord episode, where it's like, oh, look, the universe is such a better place with T'Challa being Star-Lord. And then in the last 3 seconds, it's like, oh, yeah, and because nobody was friends with Peter Quill, he's going to get absorbed by Ego, and the entire universe is going to disappear. I'm like, oh, okay.
I suppose, but also Doctor Strange, the whole universe got consumed with him.
I'm willing to give the Doctor Strange one though, because they built up to that through the entire episode. That was the theme of the episode. And the only twist to it is you expect good Doctor Strange to show up and defeat evil Doctor Strange, because that's what happens, right? The good Doctor Strange triumph. And the twist is he does not. But they build up the entire episode to the point where you're like, okay, this ending fits with the rest of the story. And with Thanos and Ego, yes, we know the stories, so they can just go, oh yeah, by the way, because this happened, this over here never happened, and terrible things will happen. But they're not set up in the story. Ego literally is not mentioned in the entire episode until the last 2 seconds. Thanos, it's Infinity War, so you know he's supposed to be coming, but otherwise is not part of the plot at all. It's just a complete left field random ending that's supposed to make you go, oh, well, I was feeling optimistic and now I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's that kind of thing. I think what I'm loving about the What If is the flex of the freedom. It feels like the cartoons were always able to go off, but they kind of did their own separate thing, but they didn't have that impact with it. And this feels like, you can finish that episode and if you think it's stupid, fine. Well, that was its own separate universe. Zombies existed in that universe. Yes, technically they are zombies now are part of the MCU.
I mean,
but I mean, did they get mentioned by Mobius? Didn't they? Didn't they mention? They mentioned vampires. I think that was it.
I think well, vampires and such,
and we're getting werewolves, and so it's not too much of a stretch. Maybe I don't know. I just loved it. I just thought it was so much fun. I did get to that end of the episode, and I was like, I really enjoyed that. That was it, because I was starting. I mean, last week's episode with Doctor Strange was great, but this one just was like, wow. I did not. I knew the zombie one was coming, but they really hit it. But then, as someone that's kind of fallen for that kind of genre at the minute, and I'm also playing Last of Us Part 2 as well in the evenings, so I'm definitely I'm in the zombie mode at the minute.
They should have added a clicker to it.
So I'm really been in the zombie mode the last few months, so this episode really hit right.
And I think it does in part depend on how you view zombies, just in general. Like for me, when I see a zombie movie, I've seen a handful. It's not really a genre I see too much, but I normally just don't get attached to the characters at all. Like mentally, I just know it's a zombie movie. 75% of these people are going to be dead by the end of it, and they'll have their heroic sacrifices, or the annoying guy will get swarmed by zombies or something. I'm just like, I'm not letting myself get attached to these guys at all, because I know they're all dead. And even with Marvel, with characters I am already attached to, I'm like, well, this is an alternate reality. They're all going to die. Happy's going to get eaten. Sharon's going to get eaten. Okay, I didn't expect Captain America to get bisected, but
what did they cut off Falcon's head? That was the other one.
Yeah, there were some pretty brutal kills in there, but I had no emotional attachment to them. No. Like, you're all going to die anyway. Okay, just go off and die. That said, I will give it props for maintaining a fun atmosphere. So even though these brutal things are happening and the characters are dying off, it never became oppressive. It never became just like pure dark and gritty. There was humor throughout the entire episode, mostly because Peter was in it, and then Ant-Man had his little quips and stuff. Yeah, really bad dad jokes. So you do sometimes get those zombies movies where it's just like everything is awful, everything is dark and terrible, or you go like the McCormick route, like The Road or something, where it's just like nobody is happy.
See, I always was Shaun of the Dead. That was always my favorite.
Shaun of the Dead is one of the very few zombie movies that I like.
Yes,
and Zombieland is a fun one too. Speaking of Woody Harrelson from earlier,
so who would have thought on a Disney Plus that it's like zombies would have been the thing for this week? So that's definitely, I think, a highlight for me. I really enjoyed that one. I was just trying to figure out. Well, we had 20-something, a new Pixar Sparkshort. So this one was all about girl that goes to a nightclub. Turns out there's 3 kids inside of a coat, because that's basically represent 3 different age groups: 16, 10, and being a baby. And they're kind of in control, and she's just not feeling being an adult. And I thought this one, as an adult watching it, I think you get a different layer of it because you can understand it and you get it. I do wonder with kids whether or not they'll get it. It didn't, but also I felt as well, it didn't really hit. It wasn't very edgy. It was the least. I think this one was probably. I mean, Mary Burrow. That was maybe this one didn't really seem to have any edginess to it.
Yeah, this is not an edgy one. This is not a profound one or anything like that. But I do think that many adults will connect with it, particularly adults who are in that age range, like let's say early 20s, maybe even up into the 30s at this point, where you don't feel like an adult. You feel like as you're growing up, you're supposed to get to this age and then everything just clicks. You become an adult and the world makes sense and you find your job and you find your purpose and you don't, honestly. I mean, a few people do. Obviously, few people will figure out what they want to do from a young age and go for it. But most people just like, oh, wait, I'm still the person that I was. There was not some magical epiphany moment where I suddenly became an adult. You just kind of grow into it. And I think particularly the next generation, or the generation who this would be a part of, are going to have that even harder than we had it growing up. I know I didn't feel like an adult until I was like early 30s, honestly. And I think it's going to be worse for the incoming. But like you said, kids who have not yet hit that transition phase, even teenagers, are not necessarily going to get it, because even if like intellectually, like it's been there is still that moment of shock when you're like 22, 23, and you're like, I still feel like a kid.
It's gonna be. I enjoyed it. I am looking forward to next week's much more, because that's about the wrestling. That's more that's more in tune of what I'm into. But I thought it was solid. It was fine. I didn't think it was amazing. It's probably my low end kind of the Sparkshorts. Probably it would be in my probably bottom two. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know if necessarily it was the worst, but I didn't feel it as much as the other ones. It was a good premise, but I thought the other ones did a lot better.
Yeah, it doesn't really grab you the way others. It's not a bad short, but it doesn't have.
I wouldn't want to watch it. I'm not going to watch it again. I don't really feel like I need to. Once was enough. I didn't. Whereas I think like some of the ones like Kickball, I watched like 3-4 times, and I think Loop and a couple of them I usually watch twice before I review it. And this was like, I didn't really feel the need to. There was nothing there I missed.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it. I think that robot one on a train. I think from the first batch.
Find and Seek or Seek and.
I think that might. Yeah. I think that might be like the bottom of the list for me. But this one, it's 1 or 2 above it. Yeah. That said, I still think it's worth watching, especially if you're in that age range. The early 20s age range, because it might connect with you a lot more than it connected with us, because it's been a while since we've had to deal with that transition phase. Granted, we are on a Disney podcast in our late 30s, early 40s, so we might still not be grown up. I don't know.
Well, according to my dad, no, I'm not. He keeps asking.
No, according to my parents, no, definitely not.
No, so that's definitely also. We also got Doogie MD. I'm trying to get there. So this we had the first episode drop. I have seen the first 2 episodes, but what did you think of this one?
I liked it better than I was expecting to. Granted, that was not a very high bar to clear. I didn't have huge expectations for this. I like the idea of it, and I think it will grow into a good show, but at the moment it's just not quite there. And that sounds like I'm really like digging into it. I actually did enjoy the episode, but it needs to find its voice.
It kind of feels, and this is the thing, is I've seen 2 episodes. If I didn't watch any more of it, I feel like I've kind of got the gist of it, and I don't know where else is it going to go. And that's not a great sign for it, because it feels a bit like, where's this going to go? There's nowhere. There's no like overarching story. She's just there working. Teenager. Yeah, and it's a bit like, okay, so are you a 16-year-old is going to think this is a really weak show? It's not good enough to be for 16-year-olds. They're going to want to watch American Horror Story, or they're going to watch something with a bit more depth. And the only way I could say it is this felt a bit like this is like your if you want to get into shows like Grey's Anatomy or House or, you know, Good Doctor, this is kind of like the show you start them on. Kind of like you watch that before you jump into the real like medical dramas, and it's like it's not good enough to be for adults. So I think it's not interesting enough for kids. It was a really weird one. I mean, I think it's fine. I'm going to give it a few more episodes before I wasn't blown away with it. It was, and also it was a bit like, okay, they're all like really like trying to make her out, and like the two brothers are just left off to kind of, you know,
the two brothers are in some weird fake love triangle, which I'm completely uninterested in. I'm using the term generously because the youngest obviously has no shot in heck, but he might be the comedic relief in that. Anyway, skipping that one aside, this is what I meant by it not really having its voice, though. And I can't compare it to Doogie Howser because I never watched Doogie Howser, so I don't know how it goes.
For me, it's been 30 years since I watched it.
So the voice thing, on the one hand, you have this teenage comedy show that's right out of the Disney Channel. You know that you could slot this in next to Hannah Montana or That's So Raven or whatever, and it's literally just her being a teenager at school, thinking about boys, thinking about learning how to drive and all that stuff. And then on the other hand, you have this semi-serious doctor medical drama. Now, it's not Grey's Anatomy, it's not ER or House, but you are supposed to take it seriously. I mean, they have a patient die in this episode, not on screen, but she has to deal with the emotional loss of having that.
I mean, it could actually do with a bit of that of like, make it, so she has to do, they die, he died while she wasn't there. We're like, you're a doctor, you're kind of gonna have to deal with the blood and the guts and the all of the I know they're not, but it's a little bit like, again, they haven't gone over the edge to become an adult show, and it's too kiddie for adults to watch. It's
right.
I feel like this is what's happening with all of the Disney shows. They can't get this line right. They're trying to please everyone, and I don't know if they're going to do that. Right. It's just going to be too bland.
Well, that's what made Love Victor work. Was they're just like, we're not worried about trying to appeal to a younger audience. We are.
You might go out. So I'm just going to fill in while he's doing it. So the thing is, I think like with Love Victor, season 1 was a little bit weaker, and season 2 picked it up. But like you said, this show, Diary of a Future President, High School Musical, they're just not at that. It's like, who are you? They're family shows, but it's got a 16-year-old. These are 16-year-olds, and they're not acting like 16-year-olds. They're acting like 12-year-olds with a 16-year-old's body.
That's definitely true. Although I don't know what 16-year-olds worry about these days anyway. I think
to be honest, they act like a well, probably for an American 21-year-old. they're off down the park, drinking cider, and there's a lot more. It's like, well, it's just looking at it going, these are not 16-year-olds. They're just not acting like a 16-year-old.
And to be fair, the people who act the most realistically were probably the patients. Whereas, like, I don't want my doctor to be a 16-year-old. It's like, I wouldn't want a 16-year-old doctor. I don't care. You could be the smartest person on the planet. I don't necessarily trust you. And that's something they're going to have to tackle with the show is figuring out how to make these two different parts work.
And it's this whole thing as well, like trying to show obviously that she might be a genius, or I don't even necessarily she can just read fast. Apparently, she's not got the emotional ability to be a doctor, and that's where I know what they're trying to do, but it feels a bit like, well, who are you trying to make this show for? I couldn't quite place it. Like, if it's just for kids, then it's not gonna pull in the big enough. I don't know. This is again, we just keep coming back to the same thing with these Disney shows where I feel like Big Shot was a little bit, they kind of edged up a little bit more to adults. And that's why, I think teenagers were more drawn to it because they were treated like adults a bit more. And this one kind of talking down, I don't know. It's a very strange one. I don't think this one's going to have a huge pull on Disney Plus. I can't see it pulling into the ratings very much. But hopefully people will check it out, but it didn't quite move the needle for me.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the same camp. I'll probably continue to watch it week to week. until something much better comes along, like in the case of Monsters at Work or whatnot.
Yeah.
But this is definitely not the top of the list of what should I watch on Disney Plus? Oh, you should check out Doogie Kamealoha. We're going. You should check out Big Shot or Love Victor or presuming we're not recommending Marvel or Star Wars, because that's the obvious one. But
this is the problem, and I do feel like this is a thing that Disney really have to rev up. I mean, we know we got like Percy Jackson and Willow, but that's kind of, they need something a bit more juicy for and this again. Now this is where we will shift a little bit over here to some of the Star stuff this week, where again, this is where these shows are moving on. So for example, on Monday we had a new episode of The Walking Dead. So again, more zombies with running around, and a really good one. You had I really enjoyed this episode. Again, you had Maggie and I completely lost my train of thought of who he was now. Guy with the baseball bat, and it's brutal. I mean, they have a lot of history because he killed her husband, but they had to survive together, and it was a very brutal episode. And it's setting up where this show is going. Monday mornings for me now is Walking Dead Day on Disney Plus, so I get a little bit of some zombie hunting. So it's quite nice this week with double helping. Then on Tuesday we got, or in the UK we got the third episode, but internationally the fourth episode arrived a little bit later than normal. It was a bit of a messy one. So did you happen to watch Only Murders in the Building this week, episode 4?
I had a very hard time watching this episode, but I did.
Yeah.
Because it is an extremely cringy episode on purpose. Between
Porky.
Oh man. Between them talking to Sting and basically accusing Sting of murder, that entire thing, it was like, I can't watch this. This is so bad because you guys cannot read this room at all. No. And then Steve Martin's date with the bassoonist, I was like, man, I've had some bad dates, but geez. It was really hard to watch that episode.
It was just the fact that I'm like being on the window balconies, kind of like, do you think of sex?
I was like, no, it's definitely like the Asian way, where they're not allowed to do it on screen, hand holding or whatever. They're holding hands. It's representative of something. Hint, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this series. It's such a, it is, I mean, apparently it's like it was the most watched premiere on Hulu for a TV series, pulling in good numbers, and I'm really enjoying it. Just the dynamic at the moment. I mean, I'm just really glad the bulldog is fine. That was the main thing I was most important. My bulldog is literally under my feet. So if you are hearing small rumbles, it is her snoring.
I've heard a couple.
When she does like a real like full on with it. So that's what that got me. I'm just really enjoying this series. It's it feels such a fresh breath out there. It's just so different to anything that's on there. It's weird, it's wacky, you don't know where it's going. I'm just really enjoying this show.
That, and it had one of the very few flash forwards that I've actually liked in a show. Generally, I don't like flash forwards because they kind of lock you into a story and so on. But with Tina Fey at the end.
Tina Fey, yeah.
With her jumping forward a couple of months, where she is now working on a podcast describing what we're watching right now. I'm like, all right, you got my attention here. Let's see where this goes.
It's just really good show. If you aren't watching this one, go check it out. It's on Disney Plus internationally, and it's on Hulu in the United States. Also this week we had a lot of 9/11 documentaries dropping on Disney Plus around the world. I don't know about in the US. I think they were mainly on Hulu. The main one, what did catch my attention, was Woman of 9/11, which was a Star original internationally. It was aired on ABC earlier in the week, and then I think it's available on Hulu. Just talking to the woman involved in 9/11, some of the stories they were telling of like being in the hotel working and bodies hitting the roof, and someone being, it was brutal. And it just, all the talk and all the video and stuff, it just brought it all back. So for me, that was the only, there's been so many documentaries on this week about it on TV, but I chose to watch that one yesterday morning when it dropped on. I'm like, it's still harrowing. It's still such a thing all these 20 years later. Because I went out to New York like 6 weeks or so after that event. and saw the destruction and what was going on out there. And I think for that, it's always been like much closer to me, even though I am a long way away. But yeah, that was a real, it was a good doc. But I mean, they put like, I think here in the UK, they put like 8 or 10 different documentaries on. So there's been quite a lot. And same in Canada and Australia, lots of different documentaries. So lots of different ones to choose from there, which is that's the benefit with Star, where National Geographic, we get the full lot, though they have been pulling back on some of the drug related. They announced them but there's actually been a bit of a problem this past week, just off the top of my head. Australia and the UK, there's been loads of shows and movies that they previously announced just not turning up. Australia was dreadful this week. They had like 6 or 7 items not turn up on the list, so it's been a bit of a messy one with the release schedule this week. But yeah, so there's been quite a bit of National Geographic stuff dropping.
Yeah, we actually haven't talked about the communication problems with Disney for a while, probably because so much is dropping that it drowns out everything else. But especially last year when there was not much dropping every week, the communication problems with Disney was very obvious, and they still need to fix that.
Yeah, I mean, it's this whole thing with Only Murderers in the Building of Europe getting one episode, or we're one episode behind Canada, Australia, and America. Why would they? Apparently, we did find out that there's, there was a decision. Why would you do that? It's like, and like there's just little things like that of like American Horror Story. We had episode 2 of this week, which is a good episode. That was definitely a bit weird with ghosts in a house. Kind of, they get out on Halloween and they were kind of running around. It was a very freaky episode. Me and my wife enjoyed that one. Again, but why are we getting them so late? And the FX shows are all over the place as well. It's just really want some continuity going on between all these channels and release schedules. It's just like, get it all together, get it all sorted, so you can at least promote them.
Yeah, as Kronk would say, by all accounts, it makes no sense.
It doesn't, and they know it. And like every team is doing it differently, and it's almost like that weird thing of they get treated as library content rather than like because to me, I look at it and go, if you've got American Horror Story, why is Canada getting it 2 weeks ahead of the UK, but they're getting it 4 weeks behind Hulu? There's no reason for it. There's no contracts. There's no why would at least in Australia it makes sense. It's not there because they're on binge because of an existing contract. That makes sense. But here in the UK, there was no reason for it to be late. I mean, I don't know if they're just like revving up for having a good September, October. I mean, there's lots of adverts and stuff about them all. Why The Last Man? Why are we getting it 2 weeks after the US? I don't know. It's just crazy.
When is that one coming out? That's soon.
I think it's next week. It's on the 13th for in America, and for us, I think it's on the 22nd. So we're getting about a couple of weeks later on Disney Plus internationally.
But you will have access to it, so we'll be able to talk about it next week, or
I don't know yet. I haven't seen it yet. That's the thing with like Only Murderers. I've got access to the episodes in advance, so I can keep up with the US line. But yeah, it is a bit messy. But I'm really looking forward to Why the Last Man. We're seeing that one constantly being promoted on TV, along with Only Murderers, An American Horror Story, and The Walking Dead. It's kind of weird. We do have that here in the UK. They run 2 adverts completely separately. You'll have an advert for Disney Plus pushing, here's Cruella and things like that, and Loki, and then there'll be 2 adverts, and then suddenly on Disney Plus Star you can get. Well, why didn't you put them in one advert and make it look like it's one?
So that I actually do understand. It's a theory in advertising that people will ignore the ads that don't interest them versus the ads that do interest them. Here in the States, we have a very famous insurance company called Geico. Their mascot's the little gecko. And they are very well known for having like 7 different ad campaigns running at the same time, using very different tactics with every single one. The idea being the ones that don't click with you just kind of fizzle away, but you remember the caveman because the caveman's hilarious, or it tickles your funny bone, and another person knows them for it's Wednesday, it's hump day, and I can see Disney doing the same thing. Like if you're not interested in Walking Dead and American Horror Story, then that ad just kind of filters through. But Cruella and Loki and The Mandalorian, I'm in. And then if But if you're in a situation like with you, where you're like, I'm interested in both, you're definitely going to notice, oh, they're really saturating the advertisements, aren't they?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's like at the cinema when they did it. I mean, on TV is one thing, but they're like at the cinema when they did them, and there was a trailer in between them, and you're like, it's just like, but it's again, that's my issue with this whole thing of this star on Disney Plus thing of making like it's on Disney Plus, but through like we can't say it's there, but it's, it's like it's just really annoying. It's a bit like FX on Hulu. It's the same kind of branding of like, well, what is it? If it's directly on Hulu, it's just a Hulu show. But nevertheless, that's all of this. I don't think there was anything else. Did you watch anything else on Disney Plus this week?
I did some rewatches, but no, nothing new, nothing we need to go into.
No. On that note, guys, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. You can join our Facebook group. You can support us on Patreon or YouTube channel members. Follow us on Twitter, all of that kind of stuff. Again, thank you very much for joining us, and we should be back next week with another episode. Later. I'd like to thank all of our Patreon and YouTube channel members for their support. You can become a member from as little as $2 a month, and you get access to our weekly Q&A and much more.